Massachusetts residents talking, even Governor Maura Healey. That's because one of them calls Connecticut the basketball capital of the world.
A bold choice, if you're asking me. Western Mass News reporter Reagan Stoddard stopped by the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts, where people shared their thoughts.
When you hear the capital of basketball, what place do you think of?
Springfield, Massachusetts.
Unveiled this week in Connecticut, new highway signs at the state borders, including this one as you drive from South Springfield into Enfield, that reads, "Welcome to Connecticut, home of the basketball capital of the world." This has people talking, especially amongst Massachusetts residents and basketball fans. Even Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey, who posted her fix to the signs on X, giving Massachusetts the honors. Matt Taylor, visiting the Bay State from Oregon, tells Western Mass News the Basketball Hall of Fame brought him to Springfield.
We made a special trip out to Springfield, Massachusetts. It was a must-do because it is the birthplace of basketball. It's the home of the Basketball Hall of Fame.
He says that's why Connecticut is not the basketball capital of the world.
Connecticut has great basketball, men's and women's basketball. They're very well known for basketball. But Springfield, Massachusetts is truly the birthplace of basketball.
And Dylan O'Brien, a Connecticut resident, tells us these signs are good for the state of Connecticut.
As a Connecticut local, I don't mind it because we're coming off the UConn win, so it's a good feeling.
But he says he understands the pushback coming from Massachusetts residents.
As a Mass local, I would basically probably be upset, knowing that it started in Springfield College and it's carried on throughout. I wouldn't be too happy about it.
Reporting in Springfield, the basketball capital of the world, I'm Reagan Stoddard for Western Mass News.